Hey everyone, it's Diana. Today, we're diving into a creepy crime story. Stick around for the chilling details. This story shocked all the residents of the small, quiet town. An innocent boy was killed in his bed while sleeping. But what particularly struck everyone was the identity of the killer, and the motives behind the crime are still debated to this day. Elijah and Caleb Lishing were brothers. They were born into a troubled family in the small, cozy town of Strasburg, Ohio, with a population of 17,000 people. Their mother, Ashley, used prohibited substances, and the family was under the supervision of authorities. She gave birth to the elder son, Elijah, at the age of 15. Ashley looked more like a sister than a mother to her son. 2 years later, she gave birth to the second son, Caleb. He was born prematurely at 24 weeks of pregnancy, weighing less than 1 kg. The second son was tiny at birth, but he survived. It was simply a miracle. Doctors put in a lot of effort to save him. After childbirth, a test for prohibited substances on the umbilical cord turned out positive, leading to the children being taken away from their mother. They were raised together in several foster families. During this time, Ashley visited them. After a while, Ashley realized that she couldn't be a good mother to her children, and they would be better off growing up in a decent, loving family. Ashley had no money, housing, or family support, so she decided and signed away her rights. After this, she lost her parental rights and was not obligated to pay child support. Ashley was also prohibited from contacting the children. Afterward, the boys were officially adopted by the couple Dina and Martin Lishing. They were an exemplary couple, attended church, and loved children. Despite having no rights to the children, Ashley tried to establish contact with them and reached out to their new parents. They strongly opposed it and denied her the opportunity to communicate with the boys. The girl found the pages of Dina and Martin on social networks and occasionally followed their lives. She saw their happy photos. The boys were clean and well-groomed, enjoying ice cream and smiling. This reassured Ashley, and she began to focus on her personal life, stopping to watch the boys. But behind the closed doors of the new family, things were not so prosperous. The police were frequent visitors to the foster parents' home. They often called the police when they couldn't handle the elder son, Elijah. He was not just disobedient, but at times uncontrollable, and they couldn't manage him. Once he tried to take his own life. The arrival of the police immediately stabilized the boy's behavior. He became calm and obedient. The last time police officers visited their home was 4 days before the tragedy. Dina complained that the boy wanted to harm himself, and he was taken to a psychological help center, where he was prescribed treatment. On April 23, 2018, a tragedy occurred. At that time, Dina and Martin went on a trip, leaving the children under the care of a nanny. At 9:30 p.m., a shocking call came to the 911 emergency service. The nanny, in a state of panic and horror, literally went crazy, screaming into the phone, reporting a terrible incident. "I'm babysitting 2 children, blood everywhere. 11-year-old Caleb seems dead. He has a wound on his neck, blood coming from his mouth. The boy, according to her words, showed no signs of life. There was a smell of gunpowder in the room, but she didn't see any weapons. The nanny didn't know if there were weapons in the house. The elder brother, 13-year-old Elijah, according to her words, was fine." At the end of the conversation, the woman reported seeing Caleb move, and she had hoped that he was alive. The nanny called the older brother, but he didn't respond. She couldn't find him. The woman tried to help the boy by performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation until the ambulance arrived. Arriving medics and police officers immediately rushed to Caleb. He was still alive, but in critical condition. He was urgently taken to the hospital, where doctors fought for his life. However, he soon passed away. Caleb was in the 5th grade, a bright and kind boy, excelling in his studies. There were no problems with him. The forensic expert determined that the boy was shot in his sleep. He was peacefully sleeping when he was shot. Caleb had 1 gunshot wound to the neck, and he died from blood loss. The bullet passed through him and got stuck in the wall. The murder of Caleb Lishing was the first in Strasburg in almost 20 years. It was a quiet, peaceful, and safe town, so this case particularly shocked the community. The police, in turn, began investigating. Crime scene investigators collected evidence at the crime scene, and the nanny went crazy over what happened, providing statements to the detectives. She explained that in the evening, she put the children to bed. First, she put the younger one to bed at 8:30 p.m. Then around 9 p.m., she put Elijah to sleep. He always fell asleep on his own, while she rested in another room nearby. The house was quiet, and she thought everyone was already asleep. But at 9:30 p.m., she heard some noise, like a bang, and jumped out of bed. The woman ran to the boy's room. The older child said something happened to his brother, and the nanny saw that Caleb was injured and lying in blood. She then called 911. While the nanny was calling and standing by Caleb's crib, Elijah disappeared. There were no signs of break-in and intrusion into the home from outsiders. The disappearance of the older child looked especially suspicious. Where could he have gone? Investigators suspected it was not just a coincidence. Presumably, it was connected to Caleb's death. Elijah became the prime suspect, and he was declared wanted. A police officer, after carefully examining the house, didn't find any weapons. It later turned out that the children often visited their grandparents' house, where firearms were kept. The grandfather had his own gun cabinet, which was locked and in an inaccessible place for children. Detectives inspected it and found out that someone recently broke into the cabinet and stole a firearm from there. The grandfather meticulously examined the contents and determined that a .357 Magnum pistol had been taken, which later turned out to be the weapon used to shoot Caleb. The police suspected that 13-year-old Elijah had broken into his grandfather's cabinet, taken the pistol, and shot his sleeping younger brother. Soon, Elijah was found with the gun in his hands. He tried to flee but couldn't get far from home. The teenager was arrested, and he faced charges of murder under aggravating circumstances. Police were stunned that a 13-year-old boy had shot his younger brother. What could be the reason for this? They tried to establish the motive for the crime. Initially, the teenager remained silent and didn't admit to the murder. He was held in the Juvenile Detention Center of Portage County. Ballistic expertise confirmed that Caleb was shot precisely with the pistol found with Elijah. His fingerprints were found on his grandfather's gun cabinet, leaving no doubt that Elijah was the killer. Investigators were also confident that the murder was intentional. Elijah didn't just accidentally find the gun, play with it, and it suddenly went off. The teenager took the gun from his grandfather's gun cabinet, stealing it from there. He couldn't even find the key, so he used tools to break into it, then fixed it so the break-in would go unnoticed, and it worked. No one noticed that the cabinet had been tampered with. Elijah put a lot of effort into getting the weapon, indicating an intention to commit the crime. Psychiatrists working with Elijah identified reactive attachment disorder in him. This mental disorder arises from a lack of close emotional contact with parents, manifesting as fearfulness, increased vigilance, poor interaction with peers, aggression towards others, and self-aggression. This disorder emerged in Elijah after being taken away from his mother at a young age. Elijah experienced significant stress, and the symptoms actively manifested when the children moved from one foster family to another. They encountered different foster parents, some of whom harshly punished them. Elijah described how Dina and Martin would lock him alone in a dark garage. He cried and begged to be released, but they didn't react. They also made him kneel on rice, causing Elijah intense pain. Dina and Martin focused their attention on the younger Caleb because he was born prematurely, weak, and required constant medical treatment and care. Elijah lacked attention from foster parents, and he envied his younger brother. The boy didn't feel love and support from parents, which he desperately needed, especially in his early childhood. He lacked emotional connection with parents and caregivers, making him feel unsafe. All of this had an impact on the fragile child's psyche. He became very temperamental, disobedient, and uncontrollable, trying to attract attention. Due to the teenager's unruly behavior, Dina and Martin often called the police and took him to a child psychologist. The psychologist worked with the boy, prescribed medication, but problems arose when the boy took the drugs. At that time, the psychologist didn't realize the severity of the situation and didn't refer him to hospitalization in a psychiatric clinic. As Elijah recounted, he didn't love anyone, neither his brother nor his foster family. He didn't experience any feelings, didn't know what love, care, and support were. He didn't distinguish between reality and the imaginary world at the moment of the shooting. He thought it was some kind of game until he lost his brother. At that moment, according to Elijah, he realized what he had done and regretted shooting Caleb. After all, he couldn't bring him back. Caleb was his only brother, and they had been through all the hardships of life together. The loss of their mother, changing foster parents, and the brother understood him like no one else. Elijah's guardian behind bars stated that the boy seemed better in the investigative isolation during the 8 months he spent there before the trial than outside, and Elijah confirmed this. Elijah said it was the happiest and safest place he had been in his entire life. Therefore, the guardian recommended leaving him in the correctional facility. In his opinion, it aligns with Elijah's interests. In the courtroom photo, Elijah's face is hidden due to his young age. He was only 13 at that time. The judge issued an order not to disclose his details to protect the teenager's identity. Several psychiatrists who worked with the boy spoke at the trial. In addition to reactive attachment disorder, Elijah was diagnosed with paranoia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and schizophrenia. Psychiatrists agreed that the teenager's problems stemmed from the cruel treatment he experienced in childhood. It turned out in court that the adoptive parents initially only wanted to adopt Caleb, but they were not allowed to take only one child, so they were forced to take both brothers. Elijah was an unwanted burden to them. He was often harshly punished, while Caleb never was. In court, Elijah admitted that he wanted to harm his brother to escape from this foster family where he was not loved. In this, he saw the only way out and confused reality with imagination. He didn't think that one shot would kill his brother. In court, Elijah was found guilty. He was sentenced to juvenile detention until the age of 21. After which he would face court again, but as an adult, and the judge would decide his further fate. He is currently 18 years old, which means that in 3 years, he will be back in court. His case will be reviewed with the possibility of incarceration in an adult prison. The judge stated that the cruel treatment of the boy in childhood does not justify shooting and killing his brother. Perhaps with proper treatment, this tragedy could have been avoided. Martin and Dina were devastated by the loss of 2 children. The life of the innocent 11-year-old Caleb was cut short, and the second child ended up in prison. The biological mother, upon learning of the tragedy, regretted her decision to give up the children. Ashley understood that she was also to blame for this. Because of the children's rejection, the boys stopped communicating with her, and it broke them. This especially affected the elder son, who remembered her well, understood everything, and also suffered cruel treatment from other foster parents. The younger one was still a baby when she gave up the children, so it hardly affected him. Ashley stated that she would like to go back in time and change everything, but it is already impossible. The 33-year-old biological mother now wants to reconnect with Elijah and help him get through all of this. Thanks for joining today's crime journey. I'm Diana, your guide in the shadows. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's keep exploring mysteries together. Stay curious, stay alert, and see you next time. Take care.